When you grow up with someone, you never expect them to become the villain in your story. I had known Rachel since I was 12. We met in middle school, stayed close through high school, and by our mid-20s, we were practically family. So when she suggested we move in together with her boyfriend, I didn't hesitate, although I should have. I'm handicapped, but when I'm not in my wheelchair, I scoot or crawl around the house. It's not ideal, but I've adapted. Before we moved in, I had one simple request. No large dog. Not because I hate them, but quite the opposite. I adore animals, but I fear being knocked over or, worse, knocked down the stairs. I lived in the basement, and the thought of a dog barreling towards me while I was scooting up to the kitchen terrified me. Rachel promised. She nodded and smiled and said, "Of course, we'd never do that. We get it." 3 weeks after moving in, they brought home a pit bull. Not just any pit bull, a hyper, untrained, unspayed young female that was basically a fur missile with legs. And again, I have nothing against animals. She was a sweetheart, but she had no boundaries. None. I was constantly dodging her enthusiastic leaps, especially when I was out of my chair. They tried half-heartedly to control her, yelling, "No, down," from across the room when glued to the couch. Walks? Forget it. The dog lived on the deck, a wooden deck above my basement window, the same deck where I stored my wheelchair. One morning, I was running late for class. I crawled up to the backyard, reached under the deck for my chair, and froze. It was soaked. The smell hit me. Dog piss. My goddamn wheelchair was saturated in it. I sat there on the cold ground, stunned, while Rachel came out in her pajama shorts, sipping coffee. "Your dog pissed on my wheelchair," I said. She blinked. "Oh shit, I didn't realize. Sorry. That was it. No offer to clean it, no urgency or remorse, and nothing changed. She kept letting the dog out onto the deck. It happened again a few weeks later, and then came the trash juice incident. One night I came home late and had to scoot through a gauntlet of liquid filth. Some torn garbage bag had leaked down the stairs and into the hallway leading into my room. It was rancid, thick. My boyfriend at the time lost it. He grabbed a marker and wrote in big bold letters on the fridge, "Clean up the trash juice in the hall." The next morning they were furious. It's not about the trash, but the tone of the message. "You didn't have to write it like that," Rachel snapped. All caps. "Really?" "It's not fucking Hallmark card," I said. I had to drag myself through that shit. But then they only heard what they wanted. The bathroom wasn't much better. Rachel had long hair, the kind that clogged drains and blanketed the shower like a horror film. I didn't have any shower chair. I had to sit directly in the tub, and her hair would cling to my thighs and back. I asked again and again for her to clean up after herself. "I don't care if your hair falls out," I told her, "but it's sticking to me and it's disgusting." She'd shrug and say, "I forget." Halfway through our lease, her boyfriend lost his job. Suddenly, they stopped paying for gas, electric, and internet. I was the one managing the bills. I'd cover everything and ask them for their share. And they'd say, "Next week." Rent receipts? They would toss them. I had to start photographing them just as proof. Then, her mom moved in. No heads up, no conversation. One day I came home and she was just there, parked in the guest room like she owned the place. She didn't pay rent, didn't help with utilities, and stayed for 4 months. The guest room had my extra single bed. When I told them I was taking it with me when I moved out, they acted like I was evicting her. "You're seriously taking the bed?" Rachel hissed. "It's my bed," I said. Her mom chimed in. "I just don't know how someone could be so cruel, taking the place to sleep from me. You do realize I'm moving out, right? I'm not leaving my furniture behind for free." They both ignored me. Rachel walked into the kitchen and shut the door behind her like I wasn't even worth responding to. The silence was deafening. It wasn't just passive-aggressive. It was aggressive. Rachel, my best friend of 10 years, acted like I'd personally betrayed her by setting boundaries, by wanting hygiene, basic respect. I packed my shit in silence. I didn't tell them the exact day I was leaving. I just did it. One trip at a time, I loaded my car with my things, bedding, and my dignity. They never paid their part of the security deposit. The landlord didn't return a cent of it either. The house was trashed. The deck was ruined, reeking of dog urine. The walls were scratched up. The bathroom tiles were permanently stained. The landlord sent me a bill, and I refused to pay. The house still haunts me. Not because of ghosts, but because I let myself believe loyalty meant anything to people like them. Rachel texted me a month after I left. "You really didn't have to make things so dramatic." I stared at the screen. "You pissed on my wheelchair." I deleted the message. Let the ghosts haunt them now. I'm not going back. This story was inspired from a real-life event that happened to one of our subscribers. She underwent this ordeal with her roommate and still thinks about her time with her sometimes, but not in a good way.
My name is Ava. I'm 25 years old. And until last summer, I was really struggling to pay off my college tuition. I worked as a waitress, which paid well enough, but my true passion was fashion design. I got into a mid-tier college last year, but I didn't qualify for any scholarships. I didn't want to take out any student loans, and no one in my family would be able to help. I'd been working really hard to save up for the last few years, but I didn't have nearly enough. It wasn't fair. I had so much talent, but I couldn't get a job anywhere without a degree. Every morning I'd look at my next-door neighbors and just surge with anger. They were an old couple, Jonathan and Margaret, and they were loaded. I'm not kidding. Their house was enormous, and every time I saw Margaret, she was wearing another ridiculously expensive outfit. They also had a bunch of classic cars. If I had just one of them, I would have been able to pay for my entire education and still have thousands left over. One morning, Jonathan showed up at my front door. That surprised me. I talked to him in passing, but he'd never come over before. He always seemed nice enough, but I'd caught him a couple times staring at me through his window like an old pervert. I knew I was something, a lot hotter than Margaret at least, so I didn't mind the extra attention from afar. Now that he was at my doorstep, though, I got a little creeped out. "Beautiful day, isn't it, Ava?" I was surprised he even knew my name. "Yeah, totally." I didn't invite him inside. He explained that he was taking his wife on vacation for a couple days, and he wanted me to look after the house while they were gone. I guess their new security cameras had spotted a strange man wandering around their property recently, and they were both a little paranoid. He offered to pay me a couple $100s for my trouble. I accepted, of course. For the first time, he took me back to his place and showed me around the property, explaining where the security cameras were. He acted pretty normal, until we reached the backyard where no one could see us. That's when he got uncomfortably close and said, "You smell nice." I politely pushed him away and hurried back around. I would not be treated like this. Jonathan followed me to the front of the house, acting as if nothing happened. His wife was there waiting for us. She had this annoyed, resigned expression that told me she knew all about her husband's skeevy behavior. They both thanked me for my help, got in their car, and drove away. I decided to do one more walk around the property, just to make sure Jonathan had remembered to lock everything. The guy creeped me out, but he was still paying me. That's when I noticed that he'd left their garage door slightly open. All of their super valuable cars were inside. Plus, when Jonathan had showed me where all the security cameras were pointing, he'd mentioned that the one facing the garage wasn't connected yet. Now, I'm not a criminal, but I was very desperate for money, and I suddenly had this huge opportunity. If Jonathan hadn't been such a creeper, I probably would have had more doubts. But as I stared at the partly open garage door, I felt emboldened to act. I looked around, making sure no one could see me. Then I wrapped my hands in my jacket to avoid leaving fingerprints, and pulled the garage door all the way open. There were 3 classic cars inside, all beautiful, all crazy expensive. The keys were all hanging on the wall, which seemed like a very stupid place to keep them. Whatever. I grabbed one and used it to unlock the first car, a convertible. 10 minutes later, I was cruising down the street, straight to my ex-boyfriend Jimmy's junkyard. Jimmy was a really sketchy person, which was why we broke up, but he was the perfect person to help me unload a stolen car. "Huh, damn, girl! Look at you, Miss Grand Theft Auto!" He called up his connection right away, and by that afternoon, I was rich. I took an Uber back home, then went back to Jonathan's place to close up the garage and make sure that I didn't leave anything incriminating behind. Unfortunately, I didn't see that my ring had fallen when I was using my jacket to open the garage door. I didn't know that it was sitting on the ground for anyone to see. When Jonathan and Margaret returned, I greeted them at the front door and told them that I hadn't seen any suspicious activity in their house. They thanked me, and Jonathan gave me a wad of cash. Literally 5 minutes later, I heard Margaret scream from their garage. I expected them to come right over and accuse me of stealing, but they didn't. I waited for them to come, but they didn't. Through my window, I saw the police come over and inspect the place, but I still wasn't interrogated or anything. I couldn't believe it. I got away with it. I went to the college and paid for my tuition, all in cash, and got ready to finally start my career. And then Margaret came over with my ring in her hand. "I know you took it. Jonathan doesn't believe me, but I know it was you." I denied everything. She swore up and down that she knew the ring was mine, but she didn't have any proof. I told her to leave. The conversation made me nervous, though. I had to think logically. I was pretty sure that Jonathan had his suspicions about me, too. I mean, how could he not? But the fact that he defended me to his wife told me that he didn't want me to get in trouble. So the next day, I dressed to impress and watered my plants just outside his window. I really posed for him, and of course he noticed. I saw him lurking behind his curtain, just full-on staring at me. I did that throughout the week. And at night, I made sure to keep my curtains open, timing it so that he'd be there to watch the show. I didn't actually talk to him face-to-face until a month later, after his car was recovered and Jimmy was arrested. Jonathan appeared at my door unannounced. He had a rose in his hands. "Come in." The old man walked in, handing me the rose. He told me about my ex-boyfriend's arrest, and how Jimmy had blamed me for the theft. "But I vouched for you, just like I told my wife that the ring wasn't yours." "Why?" "Because I want to take care of you. Because you deserve the best, and I can get you the best." He looked me right in the eyes and asked what I wanted. I told him about my plans to finish college and start my own fashion company. I told him all my dreams for the future, and he listened patiently. He was a gross old man, but he had kind eyes. He was a good listener. So I'm his mistress now. He gives me everything I want. He's been slowly transferring all his money into an offshore account. Next month, we're finally going to run away together, leaving his wife with nothing. This wasn't how I expected my life to go, but, oh well, I finally have hope for the future. And all it took was stealing a car from my future sugar daddy. In September of 2024, authorities uncovered an unusual case of auto theft in Minnesota. Vanessa Guerra, 30, allegedly stole a 2004 Ford Freestar van in August and later sold it for scrap in Blue Earth County. Investigators found an incriminating entry in her personal journal, where she admitted, quote, "totally stole a car today." Witnesses at the salvage business confirmed Guerra had sold the van. Despite denying knowledge of the theft, she was charged with felony counts of receiving stolen property and theft.
The story has been inspired from the Elizabeth Short incident which happened in Los Angeles. More about the case after the story. I had stayed late at the office that Friday. The usual month-end mess. I wasn't in the mood to go home to my silent apartment and leftovers, so I figured a movie would help me unwind. I texted Julia, my closest friend, but she replied she was on a night shift at the hospital. Rain check, she asked. I told her no worries and walked alone to the theater just 2 blocks from my office. It was one of those vintage cinemas, with peeling posters and seats that creaked like old bones. I bought a ticket to some noir flick I barely remembered the name of. I just needed noise in the background, shadows flickering across the screen. As I slid into the 3rd row, I noticed him. He was already there, alone, 2 rows behind me, pale, gaunt, with greasy hair and a stare that felt like sandpaper on skin. I caught him watching me. He didn't look away. During the previews, he moved. I heard the soft shuffle of shoes, then felt the weight of his presence as he sat 1 seat away from me. I turned my head slightly, whispering without making eye contact. Plenty of other seats, you know. He didn't respond, just breathed, slow and steady. I focused on the screen, but my heart was drumming too loudly to follow the plot. After the credits rolled, I bolted for the exit. I barely made it halfway through the lobby when he tapped my shoulder. I spun around, instinct on edge. He held out a rose. "For you," he said, his voice a hoarse rasp. I blinked at him, then scoffed. "You some kind of ugly clown trying to flirt? Save the theatrics." His expression didn't change. He just let the rose fall and walked away. I didn't look back. I should have. For the next few days, things began to feel off. My door was unlocked one evening, but I dismissed it as forgetfulness. My cat Momo would meow at shadows and hiss at the corners of rooms. The feeling of being watched clung to me like humidity. Julia told me to get a grip. "You're probably just spooked from that movie creep," she said. "Just call the landlord. Get your locks checked." I did. The locksmith came. Nothing seemed tampered with. "Maybe you just left it unlocked," he said with a shrug. But I never used the hidden key above the porch light. I hadn't in years. The night it happened, I had just come home from a dinner meeting. It was late, around 11. The air was still, too still. I fed Momo, tossed my heels by the door, and went to shower. I remember hearing a creak. I thought it was the pipes, or the cat, maybe both. I stepped out of the shower, towel wrapped and sleepy. Then I saw him, in the hallway mirror, behind me. I screamed, but it was too late. People say your life flashes before your eyes. That's bullshit. What flashed before mine was his face. Calm, cold, focused. He didn't yell, didn't grunt, just worked, like an artist with a deadline. His blade slid across my cheek. I remember the warmth of blood before the pain. He carved a smile from ear to ear. I blacked out. I woke up once, briefly. My body slumped beside a marble statue in the park I passed every morning, the one of the angel with broken wings. I heard children laughing, then a woman gasping. "Oh my God!" Then darkness. "You sure you want to hear the rest?" Julia asked me weeks later. She was pale, shaken. I nodded from my hospital bed. My mouth barely worked, wired from the surgery. "They thought you were dead. Your pulse was so faint. He posed you, covered your body in roses and smeared blood on the statue. The cops thought it was a protest art piece. Took them 10 minutes to realize you were real." She looked away. "He left no fingerprints, just a note. One line. She didn't like my gift." The media called him the Rose Killer, said I was the only one to survive. That made me a miracle, apparently, but I didn't feel like one. Every night, I saw his eyes in my dreams. I stayed awake until morning light. 2 months later, they arrested someone, a drifter with a record, but I knew it wasn't him, because 2 weeks ago, I received a package at my new address. No return label. Inside, a single red rose. And a note that read, "Still smiling for me?" That's when I knew the police had gotten the wrong man. The real killer was still out there, watching, Julia moved in with me for a while. We'll figure it out, clutching her coffee with trembling hands. You're safe now. But she was lying. I could see it in her eyes. So I checked her phone one night. She had messaged someone. She insulted you? That pathetic woman. She deserves it. Just don't kill her, okay? Scare her. A smile will do. And the reply, smiling is what I do best. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I waited. Last night I left the house. Told her I had therapy. I doubled back, slipped into the shadows across the street, and watched through the window. She picked up her phone. She's gone. Come now. He appeared 20 minutes later. Same greasy hair, same pale face. My phantom. They were close. That's when I walked in. She froze. He turned. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled, my lips a stitched mockery. Thought I'd forgotten your eyes? I whispered, pulling the revolver from my coat. One shot for each. Quick, clean. No roses this time. On January 15th, 1947, the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short was discovered in a vacant lot in Los Angeles. Nicknamed the Black Dahlia, Short had been brutally murdered, her face carved into a sinister smile. The crime horrified the city, sparking a massive but fruitless investigation. Police received taunting messages from the alleged killer, but no arrests were ever made. Over the decades, theories emerged, with suspects ranging from Hollywood elites to notorious criminals. Despite extensive speculation, the case remains one of Los Angeles' most chilling unsolved murders, ensuring the Black Dahlia's legend endures.
I've never been one of those people who believed in energy or vibes. I went to yoga to stretch, breathe, and feel a little less like my spine was being wrung out by corporate America. That Saturday morning class at Soul Flow Studio was supposed to be like every other. Sweat, quiet, and detachment. But then there was her. She walked in like any other student. Slim, blonde, maybe early 20s, with a lavender mat and a water bottle covered in stickers, crystals and a mushroom, and an I voted badge. We smiled at each other at the entryway. Nothing remarkable. I placed my mat near the back, like always. She unrolled hers, smack in the center. We started with a slow vinyasa. Everything was fine, but 20 minutes in, during Downward Dog, I heard a whisper. I thought someone's phone was on, but the voice grew louder, shaky, like static turning into a sermon. The universe, she awake, the girl murmured. Everyone held their poses a beat longer. I glanced up. Her eyes were closed, lips trembling. Everything is so fucking beautiful, she said louder, then let out this strange, blissed-out laugh. The teacher, Lyanna, didn't flinch. She glided into the next pose like it was part of the plan, but the rest of us were frozen. Then, the girl screamed, and I mean screamed, like some holy revelation had cracked open her skull and poured light into the room. We're all connected. There is no death. There is only now. No one moved. I looked around. A guy near the window mouthed, "What the fuck?" Another woman clutched her mat like a shield. She kept going, talking to the ceiling, the floor, the walls, words pouring out like she wasn't even in control anymore. The birds know. They know. And the trees are listening. We're not supposed to eat meat. Not after what they told me. Not after last night. 7 minutes. That's how long she went on for. No one dared to intervene. Not even Lyanna, who just closed her eyes and started a sun salutation like nothing was happening. And then suddenly, she collapsed into child's pose. Silence, breath, stillness. She didn't move again until the very end, when she rolled up her mat like nothing happened and walked out without a word. Everyone exchanged glances. No one spoke. I decided to look her up. Soulflow had a class sign-in sheet, old school pen and paper. Before I left that day, I snapped a photo. There it was, Eva Marlin. Her Instagram was easy to find. Typical stuff at first: yoga poses, travel pics, plant-based smoothies, and then it got weird. A story highlighted titled Revelations showed grainy video from the woods at night. In one clip, she was crying, saying something about the owls knowing the truth. In another, she was in a circle of people in weird costume, chanting. One slide simply read, 5/23, the veil will lift. I Googled that date. That was 2 days ago. I don't know what made me keep going. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was how her eyes looked that morning. Like she was high on something only she could see. I clicked through her tagged photos and one stood out. A group shot at a farm retreat, smiling around a bonfire. Caption, "Thank you at Sacred Cycle Collective for the most awakening weekend of my life." I tapped the tag. The account was gone. I reverse image searched the photo. One hit. A local news article from 3 years ago. Cult leader arrested in upstate New York following mushroom-fueled harvest ceremony incident. Same bonfire, same costumes. Eva was in the background, younger, hair shorter, but it was her. The article said the leader, Daniel Rook, had been arrested for unlawful imprisonment and distribution. The charges were dropped. The group disbanded. Or so they thought. I emailed the reporter from the article. I didn't expect a reply, but the next day, I got one. Subject line, "Do not trust her." It was one sentence. "You should talk to Eva's mother, if she'll talk to you." Attached was a police report. It was most likely redacted, but I made out the name Eva Marlin and the words "missing, suspected overdose, located by hikers." That was 8 months ago. I called the number listed for her mother. No answer. I left a message. "Hi, I met your daughter Eva in a yoga class. Something strange happened and, I found an old article and I just want to make sure she's okay." She called back immediately. Her voice was raw. "Eva died," she said. I froze. What? She died 6 months ago. An accidental overdose. We buried her in April. I didn't know what to say. But, she was in my yoga class 2 days ago, I whispered. There was a long silence, and then her mother laughed. A bitter, broken laugh. "You're not the first person to say that." I didn't go back to Soul Flow the next week, but the week after, I did. I had to see if she would come again, and she did. Same spot, center of the room, same lavender mat. She didn't say a word to me this time. No eye contact, no smile. Halfway through class, she did it again, whispering about stars, connections, and light. But this time it wasn't random. She said my name. "Danny, I forgave you. I buried you in the ash like you asked." I froze. Danny? Daniel Rook? After class, I followed her. I told myself I would just talk to her, ask if she was okay, but she walked fast, cutting through side streets, until she reached an apartment building near Koreatown. I stayed across the street and watched. 10 minutes later, a man came out, mid-30s, tall, buzz cut. I recognized him from the cult photo. Daniel Rook. He wasn't in jail. I went home, my mind racing. I called the reporter again, and this time he picked up. I saw Rook, I told him. He's with Eva. She's not dead. She's alive and in LA. He was quiet. Then he said, "They faked her death." What? She was part of the POD. They staged an OD, buried a closed casket, moved her out west. Supposed to start over with a new identity. But she's not hiding. She's at a public yoga class. Yeah, he said grimly. I think she wants to be found. A week later, Eva's story broke online. A viral tweet thread by some true crime blogger. The yoga girl who died and came back. Photos, videos, the whole 9 yards. Soul Flow shut down the next day. The cops raided the Koreatown apartment. They found Eva and Rook, but not just them. There were 3 others. 2 women, 1 man. All registered missing in all other states. All thought to be dead. Inside the apartment, they found MacBooks and mushrooms. A notebook, and Eva's handwriting. We're building something exciting. New age startup, better than AI. The next class begins when the world is ready to wake up. This story has been inspired from the mail which one of our Broccoli fam subscribers sent to us. This is what he wrote. Roughly a month ago, I was at this local yoga studio for a midday class. There was a young woman positioned near the center of the room. Seemed totally normal at first, but halfway through the session, things took a strange turn. She started mumbling softly at first, barely audible over the calming playlist. Within a couple minutes, the murmuring turned into loud, disjointed exclamations. She kept going on and on about the cosmos and how everything to light would be purified. It was hard to make out the exact words, but it was intense.
The night it all went sideways started the same way every other Thursday night shift did at the McDonald's on Willow and 7th. I was 20, 1 month away from quitting, 1 mop swipe away from losing what little patience I had left for humanity. It was 10 minutes to 10 when the first crash echoed from the back. I froze, mop in hand, blinking at the laminated "try our new quarter-pounder" sign like it might explain the sudden noise. Then came the shouting, raw, furious, like some kind of animal had broken loose. I muttered. I glanced toward the counter, but nobody was there. Sandra, the manager, had been counting cash in the office. I figured she'd handle it. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Not a fight, not an accident. Something else. Curiosity pulled me toward the kitchen. Through the swinging doors, I caught sight of Ramon, one of the grill guys, throwing a metal tray across the room. It hit the fry station with a deafening clang. People scrambled out of his way.
"Calm the F down!"
Sandra yelled, stepping between Ramon and the fryer. He whipped around and jabbed a finger at her chest.
"Tell me your hourly rate, b****!"
He barked, his face twisted into something I could barely recognize as human. No one moved. Ramon stormed through the swinging doors into the lobby, his boots slapping wet against the tile. He locked eyes with me. For a second, I thought he might hit me. Instead, he grabbed my mop bucket, full to the brim with greasy water, and hurled it across the lobby. Water splashed everywhere, carrying with it the faint stench of fries and chemical soap. He shoved the front door open so hard the glass shook, and he disappeared into the night. I spent the rest of my shift mopping up the lobby again, slower this time. Like somehow scrubbing harder could erase the way Ramon had looked at me. Like I wasn't a person at all, just something in his way. Sandra locked the doors an hour early and called corporate, so we'd have to fill out incident reports. I signed mine without even reading it, mine already halfway out the door. But walking home through the empty streets, I couldn't shake the feeling like I was being watched. The first break-in happened 3 nights later. I woke up to the creak of my bedroom window sliding open. My heart stuttered, brain still stuck between a dream and something worse. I sat up just as a shape pulled itself through the frame. Heavy boots landed on my carpet with a soft thud. It was him. Ramon. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, chest rising and falling like he'd run a marathon to get here.
You think you're better than me?
He spoke finally, voice low, ragged. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out.
You and that dumb woman Sandra, counting your little cash drawers, giving orders, acting like queens of the goddamn world.
He took a step closer. I pressed back against the headboard instinctively.
But you're just like everyone else. Crazy, lost, pretending.
There was a long pause and I thought he might hit me. Instead, he just looked at me, through me, like he was trying to find something he'd lost a long time ago. And then, just as suddenly, he turned, climbed back out of the window, and disappeared into the night. I didn't sleep after that. I didn't tell anyone either. What would I say? That Ramon, the guy who trashed the fire station, broke into my house to... Besides, part of me, God help me, part of me wasn't scared. Part of me understood. A week later, Sandra got hit. I found her outside the McDonald's after closing, sitting on the curb smoking a cigarette with trembling fingers. He came to my place, she said, voice hollow. Middle of the night, walked in through the damn patio door like he owned it. I stared at her, heart hammering. He didn't hurt me. He just stood there, talking. About how women are crazy, how we drive men insane, how we're all fake. And then, Sandra stubbed out the cigarette against the concrete, hard enough to crack the filter. I'm calling the police, she said. I stopped her. Sandra, think about it. You call the cops, then what happens? They haul him in, maybe. Or maybe they just let him go. Maybe he gets out and gets angrier, I said, crouching down beside her. She looked at me wild-eyed. So we just let him? I shook my head. You don't get it. Guys like Ramon aren't wired like the rest of us. The world pushes and pushes them, and eventually they break. I heard my own words, knew how crazy they sounded, but I couldn't stop. Some part of me, the part that hadn't stopped thinking about Ramon since that night, believed it. They need release. Not permission or forgiveness. Just release. Sandra stared at me like I was speaking another language. It sounds like you're defending him, she said. She lit another cigarette with shaking hands. She didn't call the cops. Neither did I. A few nights later, Ramon came back. Not to my window this time. To the front door. Brazen. Calm. I didn't scream. Didn't run. I opened the door and let him in. He didn't say anything at first. Just brushed past, boots tracking dirt onto the carpet. He sat down on the couch like he owned the place. You're not like her. You get it, don't you? He said finally. I sat down on the floor across from him, knees tucked to my chest. Get what? He smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a smile carved out of bone and bad decisions. Pressure, and what it does to a man. We sat there in silence, the cheap clock on the wall ticking like a bomb. The air between us was already thick with something heavier than hands. He stayed for an hour, maybe 2. Then he left. I locked the door behind him and stood there, forehead pressed against the wood, shaking. Not with fear, but with something else, something closer to understanding. I never saw him again after that. Sandra quit 2 weeks later, said she was moving back to Texas to be near family. Couldn't hack it here anymore. I stayed. Someone had to. This story was submitted by one of our subscribers. 4 years ago, when she used to work at McDonald's, one of her colleagues created a ruckus in the kitchen, shouted at the manager, and threw the water from her bucket, then looked at her angrily and walked away. Thankfully, he was fired soon after and they never encountered him again.
I didn't think I'd ever be the kind of woman who counted down to her high school reunion. But there I was, in my studio apartment, surrounded by Amazon packages labeled XS, Spanx, and Glam Press-On Nails, refreshing the RSVP list for the North Shore High class of 14 like it was the goddamn Oscars. 10 years since Stacy Ridgemont whispered Lacey's a land whale loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. 10 years since I walked home crying, swearing I'd show them all. And now I had a secret weapon, Ozempic. Yeah, that Ozempic. At first, I told myself I was just testing it for my PCOS. But let's be real, I wanted to glow up. Needed to. Deserved to. By the time June rolled around, I was 70 pounds lighter, had cheekbones I'd never met before, and fit into a dress labeled 2 that made my cleavage look like it had a PR team. When I walked into the reunion, jaws actually dropped. I kid you not, Stacy nearly spilled her rosé when she saw me. "Lacey?" she gasped, clutching her necklace like I was a ghost. "Still landbound?" I smiled sweetly. "Or have you evolved into air travel?" Petty? Yes. Satisfying? Oh, God, yes. Everyone wanted a piece of me that night. DMs blew up. Old flames started circling like I was blood in the water. One of them, Trevor King, looked better than ever. He played cornerback in high school. Now did something in fintech or crypto or some other vague, scammy-sounding job. "Jesus, Lacey," he said, handing me a drink. "You're like a whole new person." I burned the old version. I laughed, and for a moment, I half believed it. We ended up at his place that night, a sleek condo downtown with minimalist furniture and an espresso machine more expensive than my car. Things were heating up, shirts unbuttoned, music low, and then everything went fuzzy. I felt dizzy, like my insides were curling inward. Next thing I knew, I was flat on the floor, blinking up at a horrified Trevor. He called 911. At the ER, they pumped fluids into me like I was a dying plant. Diagnosis: dehydration. Side effect of Ozempic. The kicker? Trevor was also on it. He admitted it while feeding me ice chips. "I threw up 3 times last week from just a salad," he chuckled. "But hey, abs over appetite, right?" We both laughed, weakly. We went off Ozempic, doctor's orders. Within weeks, the weight came roaring back like it had been waiting in the shadows. And with it came something else, an idea. See, Trevor and I started seeing each other regularly. Misery loves company. And soon, obsession turned to resentment. We hated watching the pounds return, hated feeling powerless. Until one night, we stumbled upon a subreddit called The Glow Cartel. It wasn't public, it was invite only. But Trevor, who had some connections, got us in. It was filled with posts from people who'd faked prescriptions, traded black market GLP-1 agonists, and microdosed to keep losing weight without the nasty side effects. There was even a guy selling clean Ozempic, imported, supposedly tampered with to reduce nausea. We were skeptical, but desperate. Trevor messaged the guy. His username was Newton's Ghost. The first delivery came in a velvet box. No label, no instructions, just a note that said 1 injection per week. No puking, no slipping, no refunds. And for a while, it worked. The pounds dropped again. My Instagram looked like an influencer's. I started getting sponsored DM offers. Detox teas, teeth whitening kits, even a swimsuit line. Trevor started skipping work just to have sex or weigh himself or both. It was intoxicating. Until we found out the truth. One of the girls from the subreddit died. Her sister posted about it. Collapsed in a tanning salon. Heart failure. Lab results showed amphetamine compounds mixed into the injection. I freaked. Trevor didn't. It's probably a one-off. He said, people react differently. She was doing some illegal stuff too. I wanted to believe him. But then I started hearing things. In the walls. In my sleep. My heart would race for no reason. And I caught Trevor lying about how much he was using. You said once a week, I accused. I am! Maybe twice? And then I found the texts. He was still messaging Newton's ghost. Only now, he was selling the stuff to others. Just helping people, he told me. You're becoming a fucking dealer! We fought. Hard. Screamed in the middle of a Shake Shack, ironically. He stormed out. I cried in the restroom for 20 minutes. I went to the police, gave them the username, told them about Trevor's side hustle. They said they'd look into it. A week later, Trevor disappeared. Vanished. No calls, no posts, just gone. His condo was spotless when I broke in. Yeah, I broke in, couldn't help myself. The only clue was a blood-stained towel in the trash and his crypto wallet drained. I was the last person to see him alive. The cops questioned me, of course, but I played dumb, told them he ghosted. Maybe ran off with some Instagram model. But I knew better. I think Newton's ghost killed him. Or maybe Trevor was Newton's ghost, and someone else wanted him gone. Either way, I couldn't go back to that life. I spiraled. Ate everything. Anything. Whatever was off limits before, I devoured. Cookies, fried chicken, whole tubs of frosting. My body ballooned in real time, and I didn't care. Okay, maybe I did, but caring didn't stop the cravings. And then, something wild happened. I saw Trevor again. 6 months later at an all-inclusive resort in St. Lucia. He was unrecognizable. Massive. Sweating through a linen shirt, holding a tray with 5 chocolate puddings. Our eyes met across the buffet. "Lacey?" he wheezed. "Still glowing?" I smirked. He laughed. I laughed. And then we sat together by the pool. Turns out, he faked his disappearance. Staged the blood. Cashed out crypto, went off-grid. Said he'd been hiding from the subreddit after some users got doxxed, and one girl's face melted from counterfeit injections. Melted? I asked. "Skin necrosis," he said, mouth full of pudding. "Like actual sloughing off. Horror movie shit." We both paused, and then shrugged. Trevor leaned back, his belly jiggling like a prize hog's. Maybe this is who we were always meant to be," he said, fat and full of lies. "No," he grinned, "free. I let the sun bake my thighs. The rolls of flesh untouched by any Spanx. Free." This story is loosely inspired from the real life of Emily Wright, a teacher based out of Toronto. She started with Ozempic in the year 2018. Miracles happened and she lost over 80 pounds. But then the side effects showed up and she was vomiting so much that she had to take a leave of absence from work. I always thought so-called clean eating was just a marketing trick. Something slapped on vegan granola bars and overpriced smoothies in Silver Lake cafes. But John said this was different. "It's not a diet," he told me, eyes wide and excited. "It's a spiritual reset." We were sitting on our couch in LA, surrounded by yoga mats, digital detox journals, and a bubbling pot of what would become our daily meal, cabbage soup. The smell was already souring the air. We had just joined Soul Spiral Retreat, a 30-day digital wellness immersion promising physical purification and soul elevation. A new age program run through an exclusive app with a waiting list longer than Coachella's. Entry required a video application, blood panel, and psychological screening. We got in, and we were proud of it. The rules were clear. Soup 3 times a day, complete celibacy, 4 daily meditations, no contact with outsiders, and mandatory uploads. Videos, photos, progress logs, shared daily with the Soul Spiral community. Transparency, they said, is the gateway to transcendence. On day 4, a new rule appeared on the app. Clothing is ego. The body is truth. Upload visual evidence of release. No edits, no masks. John was skeptical at first, but I saw the shift in him. The comments rolled in under his pictures. Beautiful energy. Masculine surrender. You're almost there. He started posting every day. Me too. The attention was addicting. We were rising fast in the ranks. Top 20, then top 10. By day 9, John's ribs started showing. He laughed it off, chugging lemon water. Burning through the old self, he'd say. But I noticed something else. Men in the top 10 began disappearing. Zach, the firefighter from Oregon. Milo, the yogi from Austin. Dylan, who used to do shirtless affirmations in his greenhouse. Gone. Profiles inactive. No farewell posts. I messaged support. No reply. John said I was overthinking. Some people just can't handle the transformation. On day 12, John fainted during our 7 p.m. breath work. His body collapsed like a stringless puppet. I screamed. But by the time he woke, he smiled like it had been a vision. That night, we heard the guru's voice for the first time. A live stream, audio only. His voice was slow and soothing, like warm milk and static. The masculine must release all resistance. The feminine must rise. Only then can truth awaken. On day 16, I got a message. Congratulations, Natalie. You have been chosen for Ascension. Only the top female participants were invited to complete their transformation at Soul Spiral's private island ashram. John wasn't eligible. His vitals had dropped too low. I cried when I hugged him goodbye. He was too weak to lift his arms. I flew alone. No phone allowed, no luggage, just a brown robe and the app on a locked device they handed me in flight. When I landed, guards in brown uniforms greeted me with soft smiles and silent nods. The island was beautiful in the way haunted places are. Too quiet. The trees didn't sway. The birds didn't chirp. At the center stood the ashram. A white dome, windowless, with crescent symbols carved into the stone. Inside were 27 other women, all in brown robes, all smiling, all glowing with hunger and something else. Something fanatic. The first night, we were summoned to the moon room. It was circular, clean, cameras everywhere. The guru's voice played through speakers in the walls. Tonight, as every night, one will receive the blessing. We sat cross-legged in silence. Then the guards came in, walked the circle, and stopped at a girl named Elise. She stood without a word, eyes glassy. She followed them through a black velvet curtain. She returned before dawn. She didn't speak, just stared out the window until sunrise. On day 19, I saw the ocean for the first time. It wasn't allowed, but I snuck out during afternoon mantra. I followed the path behind the greenhouse and climbed over the fence. There was a dock and a boat, but it was chained. No oars, no motor, just a prop. I tried to talk to a guard. Can I call home, just once? He smiled gently. Why would you want to go back? The blessings continued each night. Always a different girl. Always silence after. I tried to talk to Lacey, who had been selected the night before. She was walking slowly that morning, bent and holding her lower back. Her eyes were red. Are you okay? I asked. She didn't answer, just walked past me like I wasn't there. Day 22. I packed a bag with the robe, 3 apples from the offering plate, and the locked tablet. I was going to try the ocean again. I never made it. 2 guards were waiting at my door. The guru has requested you. They led me through the moon room, past the black curtain. The room was dim, candles everywhere, incense so thick it coated my tongue. I was told to kneel. A voice, gentle as silk, whispered, "Do you accept the blessing?" I paused. I nodded, and then the screen in the corner turned on. Live chat. Hundreds watching. Hearts, fire emojis, dollar tips. "She's ready. Ascension incoming. Take me next, oh my guru!" The blessing happened behind closed eyes. I don't want to describe the details. I woke up in my room, sore. The robe neatly folded on my bed, my tablet blinking. "Congrats, Natalie. You are now a level 3 flame bearer." Day 25. I saw Lacey again. She was in the kitchen, laughing with a guard. I pulled her aside. "You're not like the others," I said. She looked at me, smiled, and dropped the whisper. "It's a show. They're paying to watch you break." "What?" She pulled out a hidden phone, scrolled through a dashboard. "OnlyStance, premium stream, trauma as art. The guru's a failed actor from Utah. This whole thing is a tech startup disguised as a cult." My mouth went dry. "What about John?" She shrugged. "He actually believed. Most don't. But his organs were failing. He didn't make it." I staggered back. Lacey kept scrolling. "Don't be mad. You're making us a lot of money." "Describe a lot." "Your blessing stream pulled in $50K. My jaw dropped. That night, I didn't resist. We chanted. I smiled. I bowed. In the moon room, I sat taller than ever. The guru's voice returned. "Surrender, and you will be seen." I looked directly into the livestream camera. "My name is Natalie," I said. "I was lost. Now I'm found. I am clean. I am blessed." Tips exploded on the screen. Viewers cheered. I kept smiling. 2 weeks later, somewhere in LA, a new influencer joins the Soul Spiral app. Blonde, tan, perfect teeth. She uploads her day 1 photo with hashtag raw reset. The comment section read, "You got that flame bearer glow. Natalie made it. You can too. Pain is freedom." This story is inspired from an incident shared by one of our Broccoli fam subscribers. He said, quote, "A few years back, my wife decided that we should try this cabbage soup diet that she read about online. She whipped up a monstrous cauldron of cabbage stew that smelled like someone boiled socks and sadness. That thing became our lunch and dinner for days. Each day brought a new twist. One day you could drown yourself in skim milk. Yum. The next, it was bananas galore. With the stew, of course. Always the stew. I vaguely remember a day where you could eat a potato. That one felt like a national holiday in comparison. But that soup, that soupy punishment, it'll haunt my nose and taste buds forever."
The story is inspired from a real-life incident which happened in the year 2024 in South Carolina. A bizarre food fight broke out at Jack in the Box. More details about the incident after the story. My sister Joni is a real piece of work. If you talked with her for more than a minute, you know she was a Karen, expecting everything to go her way, flipping out at the slightest inconvenience. I loved her, of course. She was my sister. But sometimes it was pretty hard to listen to her ranting. Last weekend, we were supposed to meet for lunch at her favorite cafe. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let her in. I guess she'd thrown a fit the last time she was there. I suggested a few other restaurants we could go to, but she rejected each one. I'm not 100% sure, but it seemed like she'd been banned from all those places too. Like I said, Joni was a real piece of work. With no other options, we decided to go to the McDonald's at the end of the street. Neither of us wanted fast food, but we were both hungry. We went to the counter where a girl waited to take our order. Joni ordered a 10-piece chicken nugget combo. I was about to ask for the same, but Joni grabbed my arm and said, "Oh, honey, do you always have to copy me?" I thought that was a weird thing to get upset about. Why would she care what I ordered? But I didn't want her to be in a bad mood before we even sat down, so I changed my order to a fish sandwich. She expected me to pay for both of us, so I did. We sat at a table by the window and waited for our food. Joni immediately started complaining about her husband. I pretended to listen. I tried to change the topic to something else, anything else. But as always, she went back to complaining. Eventually, she got up to go to the restroom. While she was gone, our order got ready and I collected it from the counter. I knew I shouldn't, but I got a really devious thought. I saw that Joni had all 10 of her chicken nuggets on her tray. Before she got back from the restroom, I grabbed 2 of the nuggets and popped them into my mouth. They tasted delicious. So much better than my fish sandwich. I hated that she convinced me to change my order. I finished chewing right when Joni returned to the table. She was rubbing Purell on her hands. "That restroom is disgusting. I think I should talk to the manager." Once she sat down, she looked at the tray of food in front of her. I watched her expression change as she counted her nuggets. "Jesus Christ, can you believe this? My nuggets are missing." I had to hide my smile. "What are you talking about? They're right there." "Are you stupid? Don't you know how to count? There should be 10 nuggets, not 8. "Well, I guess I'm glad I followed your advice and ordered something else." Her fingers trembled with rage. Joni pulled out her phone to take photos of her food, to document the injustice. I had to bite my cheek to stop from laughing. She got out of her chair, ready to rush over to the counter and scream at the poor worker. I grabbed her arm to stop her. "I paid for the meal, remember? Let me complain, okay?" Joni obviously didn't like deferring to me, but she couldn't think of a counter-argument. She sat back down and crossed her arms, like a little kid who just got sent to time out. I walked back to the counter. The worker smiled at me, and I smiled back. "Hi, I know this is kind of a weird situation, but my friend over there is planning to cause a scene. She ate 2 of her chicken nuggets, but she's gonna act like you never gave them to her. It's a scam she's done at other fast food locations. I just wanted to warn you in case you wanted to get your manager." "Okay, I'll be right back." When the manager came out, I told him the same thing I told his employee, that my sister was planning to scam them. "Thanks for letting me know." Then I returned to her table. Joni's jaw was clenched as she waited to hear what the manager had said to me. "I'm sorry, Joni, but the man said there was nothing he could do. He says you got all 10 of your nuggets. He thinks you're scamming them or something." "That is unacceptable!" She jumped out of her chair and stormed toward the manager. He towered over her, probably outweighed her by 100 pounds, too. "My nuggets! Give me my nuggets, you fucking thief!" Joni dove over the counter and grabbed the manager by his shirt. I wasn't expecting things to escalate this quickly. She tried to punch the man in the nose, but he twisted out of the way. "Nuggets!" I guess the restaurant had a taser hidden under the counter in case of situations like this one. With her body stretched across the counter and her fingers clawing at the manager, the man pulled out the taser and zapped her. I watched Joni twitch uncontrollably. That lasted for about 5 seconds before she fell limply onto the counter. Then she slid onto the floor, moving like she didn't have any bones in her body. The manager called 911.
"Hello, police. We have another Karen incident."
Before Joni regained the energy to stand, I finished the last of her nuggets. Slowly, she got back to her feet and limped back over to the table. "You okay?" I'd never seen my sister so furious in her life, and I'd seen her get angry a lot. She looked down at her tray, seeing that all the chicken nuggets were gone. "Oh, sorry, you can have my fish sandwich if you want." In the year 2024, a Jack in the Box customer confronted staff about a missing curly fries order and became aggressive. Footage from Spartanburg, South Carolina, revealed that the customer yelled for her food, threw display signs, and danced tauntingly before hitting one of the workers. After she threw a metal object, a worker punched her, starting a larger fight. Other employees jumped in, and the customer's friend also participated in the fight. There are no further details about the case on whether the authorities got involved.
It was my third week in the Philippines, and I was headed to a small coastal town that wasn't even on most tourists' maps. The plan was to get there before sundown, settle into a hostel, and maybe catch a sunset by the beach. I waited by the roadside with a few locals for the next minibus heading that way. When one finally pulled up, the driver barked something in Tagalog, motioned me forward, and shoved my backpack in the back. There were clearly empty seats in the back, but they threw a rice sack on one of them and told me, in broken English, that it was full. The driver patted the front seat and smiled. "You sit here. Safe." I hesitated. My gut didn't like it. But 3 hours didn't seem too bad. His friend, stocky and wearing mirrored sunglasses, hopped in beside me. As the engine sputtered to life, he smiled like we were on a first date. "Where are you from? America?" "Yes, Chicago," I replied politely, shifting closer to the window. He whistled. "Exotic. Beautiful eyes." I gave a tight smile and turned toward the passing trees. At every stop, he brought me snacks. Banana fritters, soda, some sticky rice wrapped in leaves. I declined most, but he kept insisting. "You my guest." He grinned. He showed me pictures of his kids, his wife, his house. They were sweet looking. I nodded, smiled, said things like, "Cute kids." He beamed. "You should meet them. We cook lechon. You like lechon?" "I'm vegan." "You need meat. Give you strength." 30 minutes from the town, things changed. He opened his photo gallery again, but this time it was gym selfies. Shirtless, sweaty. "Soon six-pack. You assess my body, yes?" I didn't respond. I crossed my arms and looked out the window. And that's when I felt it. His hand on my knee. "Don't worry," he said softly. "My wife not home." I shoved his hand off and snapped, "Don't you dare touch me!" Silence. The driver looked over. Whoa, whoa, whoa. He just play. No angry." "Pull over. I'm getting out." "Relax," the driver said. "We take you to your hostel. VIP service." His friend chuckled. "You got boyfriend?" "Why single? So beautiful. Come, we get drunk. Swim in pool. 3 of us." I turned back and yelled, "Stop the bus! I said pull over!" There were 2 other passengers in the bus. One was fast asleep without a care in the world. The other was watching everything intently. He was expressionless with mouth wide open. My heart was pounding. I scanned the road outside. Trees, dust, no shops, no people, no way to run. I had 2 options. Jump off a moving bus in the middle of nowhere, or play along, just long enough. I swallowed my fear. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Pool sounds fun. I'm just tired, that's all." The 2 of them exchanged a grin like they'd already won. By the time we reached what looked like a dingy roadside resort, it was evening. A murky pool shimmered under flickering yellow bulbs. I followed them, clutching my bag, fingers trembling as I discreetly opened WhatsApp and messaged, "Need help. These men. Resort 30 minutes from San Luis. Pin location." I hit send. To Arjun, the Indian guy I'd met at a hostel in Palawan. The only one I trusted in this entire country. Inside the pool area, they poured cheap rum into plastic cups. "Time for swim. You wear this, no?" He tossed me a faded hotel towel. I shook my head. "I'll just dip my legs." They didn't care. The one with mirrored sunglasses, Rico, I think, slid in beside me.
Sunburn bad here. You exotic girl. Must put sunscreen.
I blinked. Okay, but only one of you gets to do it. And I'll do whatever he says after that. Deal? That was all it took. They froze, turned to each other, puffed up with ego and liquor.
I brought her snacks. I made her laugh. You always get the girls. This one's mine.
I scooted away quietly as they began shouting. One of them actually shoved the other. Glass shattered. Suddenly, red and blue lights. Police. 2 officers stormed in with flashlights. The 2 men looked like stunned goats. One officer glanced at me. "You okay, ma'am?" I nodded, swallowing down tears. "Yes, thank you, thank you." They took statements, but I barely remember it. I only remember packing my bag with shaky hands, climbing into a tuk-tuk the police called for me, and heading straight back to my old hostel. I didn't wait to find out what happened to Rico or the driver. Didn't care. This story is inspired from a real event shared by one of our Broccoli fam subscribers. In real life, she screamed at them in the bus and they finally stopped it. She immediately got off, and thankfully it was a busy street. She was safe after that.
I've known Mark since high school. Back then, he was a beast. State-level wrestler, cut from stone. The kind of kid who could drop 10 pounds in a week and still take your head off on the mat. But life happens. After graduation, he stopped wrestling and started eating like he was still burning 1,000 calories a day. Within 5 years, Mark didn't even look like an athlete anymore. He looked like a cautionary tale. I remember the day he told me about the bet. We were in his garage, sweat sticking to the concrete floor, playing Settlers of Catan, while his old fan did a half-assed job pretending it was fall in Alabama. I was halfway through my 3rd slice of pepperoni when Mark said, "You know you just ate more calories than I've had in 2 weeks, right?" I laughed. He didn't. "I made a bet," he said. $2,000 each from both of them. Wait, what? He leaned forward, eyes bloodshot from whatever soup fast he was on. I told Ricky and Donnie I could lose 50 pounds in a month, and they shook on it. That's not healthy, man. No shit. That's why they agreed. They think I can't do it, but I've done worse. You remember regionals junior year? He wasn't wrong. That year, he dropped 14 pounds in 3 days by jogging in trash bags. "This time it's just a little bit longer," he muttered. "Just gotta break my body like a wild horse." The next few weeks were something out of a war documentary. Mark lived on broth. Not even soup, just broth. The guy had bones in his fridge like some Appalachian witch. Every couple of days, he'd let himself lick a cracker or 2. He stopped answering texts unless they were about weigh-ins. I visited again around week 3. He looked like shit, but determined as hell. "I'm 44 pounds down," he said, shivering under a hoodie soaked in his own sweat. "Almost there." Dude, this is crazy. He didn't even look at me. I want the money. The last week was peak madness. I'd heard from his roommate that Mark turned the bathroom into a steam cave, ran the shower full heat for hours, blocked the vents, sealed the door with towels. He'd sit in there for hours, meditating like a monk in hell. When he came out, he'd collapse, sometimes vomiting bile, and then he'd get back up. Weigh-in day. Ricky and Donnie came over, all smug grims and vape clouds. "You really think he did it?" Ricky laughed, unwrapping a chicken sandwich like a villain. Mark stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, skin pale and sagging like wax. He climbed on the scale, 238.2. He started at 289.5. Silence. "Shit," Donnie muttered. Mark stared at them like he was waiting for a blessing. "You cheated," Ricky finally said. "You just lost water weight. It doesn't count." Mark's jaw flexed. "We didn't say how." just if. Nah, man, Donnie added, backpedaling like a rat. That's not real weight loss. This was about fat. You're just draining fluids. We're not paying. Mark didn't say anything. He just turned and walked away. That's where it should have ended, but it didn't. 3 nights later, Ricky was arrested, DUI, and assaulting a cop. No big shock. What was shocking was that his apartment had been broken into, trashed, electronics missing, door kicked in. Cops assumed it was just payback from some dealer. Then Donnie's house caught fire. Electrical issue, they said. A total loss. He and his girlfriend barely made it out. And Mark, he disappeared. His phone went dark. His roommate said he left a note. They're gonna pay. That was it. A week passed, and then 2. One night I was driving home and I saw his car parked outside this old gym we used to hit up at high school. It had been shut down years ago, so I pulled over. Inside, the place smelled like mold and burnt rubber. The lights were on, though. I followed a noise, some kind of weird clanking and dragging, into the weight room. Mark was there, but he wasn't right. He'd grown a patchy, wild beard. Hey, I said cautiously. He turned slowly, smiling like a corpse. Harry, he said. You came. What are you doing here, man? He lifted something from behind the bench press. It was Ricky's laptop, charred. They didn't pay, he whispered, so I took what they owed me. I felt my stomach drop. Wait, you started the fire? He chuckled. Not directly, but Donnie always plugs his PS5 into a 2-socket splitter. I just moved some things around and called electrical encouragement. I backed up a step. And Ricky? Assaulted a cop while blackout drunk. I just nudged the timeline. Slipped him a few extra tabs of Xanax at the bar. The guy's liver's been screaming for years now anyway. I stood there, heart racing. Jesus, Mark, that's insane. He dropped the laptop. They bet against me, and they didn't pay. You think I was just gonna take that? I didn't call the cops. I didn't tell anyone. A week later, Donnie died in his sleep. Carbon monoxide leak. A freak accident, the news said. And Ricky? He got jumped in jail. Stabbed with a pen. Still alive, but barely. I visited Mark one last time. He was living at a shitty motel outside Talladega. Body emaciated, but proud. Surrounded by protein bars and cheap vodka. You know I can't let this slide, I told him. He grinned. Sure you can. You're just like me, Harry. You don't like when people break the deal. No, but I also don't like murder. Nobody got murdered. Just lost. He looked at me for a long time. You tell anyone, and I'll know, he said. And I'll count you next. I kept quiet and moved on with life. This story is loosely inspired from an incident shared by one of our subscribers. His friend did lose weight and won the bet, and the guys who had to pay didn't pay. He was angry, but thankfully that was the end of the story in real life.
I remember the night clearly, even now. How the tent loomed like a bruise against the dusky sky. The laughter around me fractured, distant, like echoes from another life. I was in Ohio, passing through a nowhere town with too many pickup trucks and not enough people. The carnival sat at the edge of a cornfield, glowing like an infection. I should have just gone back to my motel, but I didn't. Something about the place called to me. I passed by a booth where a boy won a giant panda by sinking 3 rubber balls into red plastic mouths. A woman in a red wig told fortunes with a cigarette dangling from her lip. And then, there it was. The funhouse. No signs, no music, no obnoxious barkers. Just a worn canvas flap and those 2 words. funhouse. A man exited just as I approached. He looked like he'd walked through a war. Hollow cheeks, eyes that stared straight through me. He didn't blink. He just walked away. I hesitated. That should have been my cue. But I stepped inside. The air was thick, hot. I blinked until my eyes adjusted to the dark. A single spotlight shone from the ceiling, illuminating a corner. There hung a painting. It was old, the colors faded, the canvas cracked like dry skin. It showed a person riding a bicycle through some idyllic countryside. Where the face should have been, there was a mirror. Small, oval, warped like funhouse glass. I walked up, and when I stood in front of it, the light shifted. Suddenly, I was smiling. My body relaxed. A rush of euphoria spread through me like a high. I could hear wind in my ears, laughter, my own, echoing inside my skull. I was riding, really riding. Like I was 7 again and life hadn't crushed me yet. Then the light moved. Another painting. This one had someone flying, wings stretched wide, suspended above the earth. I didn't even hesitate. I stepped into place, and there I was, soaring. My skin tingled. My heart pounded, but in the best way. I gasped out loud, tears pricking my eyes. "This is unreal," I muttered. Then came the third painting. A person with a hammer, smiling wide. I stepped up, still grinning, still chasing that thrill. Crack! Pain shot through my fingers like a lightning bolt. I screamed. My hands were intact, but they burned. I stumbled back, disoriented. What the hell? The next painting showed a person sitting in a salon chair. Odd, but harmless, I thought. I stepped into place. A sudden, sharp tug on my scalp. Then another. Then teeth, sharp ones, invisible ones, chewing through strands of my hair like hungry rats. I screamed and tried to pull away, but my legs wouldn't move. I was glued, held. The light jumped to the next painting. My body was flung forward as if pulled magnetically. I was in front of it before I could blink. I didn't even see what it was. Black hands, countless, slick, crawling over my body, fingers wrapping around my neck, slipping into my ears, pressing on. "No," I whispered. "No, stop!" I couldn't breathe. The hands were dragging me backwards into the canvas, into the void behind it. I couldn't scream. My mouth was dry, my throat locked. I woke up on the floor, cold, sticky, drained. I don't know how much time passed. The paintings were gone. The lights were off. I stood up. My legs felt like wet cardboard. And then I walked out. A clown passed me. His eyes lingered too long, but he said nothing. I said nothing. The night air hit me like a slap. I felt nothing. I was nothing. I walked to my car, drove to the motel, didn't eat, didn't sleep. The next morning, I woke up with a terrible ache throughout my body. My fingers ached like they'd been slammed in a door. It's been 6 weeks. I haven't told anyone. What would I even say? Every night, I hear wind in my ears. Every night, I wake up to find my legs walking toward a wall, arms stretched out like I'm flying. And sometimes when I pass by a mirror, my face isn't mine.
"You came back,"
a voice said once from the dark. I haven't stepped into another carnival since, but I keep seeing flyers in places I've never been. Crumpled, old, but somehow new. Funhouse. No address, no contact, just those words. And I know one day I'll follow it again. I don't know why. Maybe this time I'll stay. In March of 2025, a woman named Riley Madison Ladner, 22, was surprised when a stranger on YouTube pointed out that she looked like the woman in the 1909 painting At the Dressing Table by Zinaida Serebriakov. Initially dismissing it, Riley was shocked after looking up the painting and seeing her striking resemblance, including features, hair, and a nightgown she owned. She recreated the look for a video, finding it interesting as a painter herself. Riley is even thinking about taking a DNA test to check for a connection to the artist.
I was halfway up the driveway when the yawn hit me so hard I had to stop and blink. The sky was still streaked in burnt orange, the kind of light that made everything feel half real. It had been one of those bone-tiring days, the kind that made you question why you ever left bed. All I wanted was to sink into my sheets, not deal with Zoom's barking again. But the second I unlocked the door and stepped inside, there it was.
Jesus, Zoom, what is it now?
I snapped, slamming the door shut. His bark echoed down the hallway, a frantic rhythm I'd grown used to but never truly understood. I made my way up the stairs, dragging my bag and half cursing under my breath. I figured he'd spotted another squirrel from the window or gotten riled up over a shadow. Then came the pain. A sharp, searing explosion in my toe. I screamed before I even looked down. Tears sprang to my eyes unbidden. A rat trap. A goddamn rat trap. I yanked it off, nearly collapsing. And that's when I really saw the room. Traps everywhere, lined like landmines on the floor, under the window, along the walls.
Jeff!
I thundered, half hopping, half limping out the door and into his room. He looked up from his laptop, headphones halfway off. Hi, Mom.
Shut up! What the hell is this?
I tossed the trap onto his floor. He flinched. I'm trying to catch whatever's driving Zoom crazy. He keeps barking at the walls. I think something's in there.
So you thought it would be a good idea to turn our home into a minefield?
He gave a sheepish smile. Well, we know they work. I sighed, defeated, more exhausted than angry.
Clear that stupid room and walk the damn dog. He has too much energy.
I limped into my room, peeled off my shoes, and collapsed into my bed. The door clicked shut behind them. Zoom's barking trailed off as they walked down the street. Silence. Finally. I didn't mean to sleep. When I woke up, the room was dark. No sounds, not even the distant hum of traffic. Just stillness and a sick feeling in my stomach. Then came the scream.
Ah!
I shot up. My room swam in darkness. I stumbled into the hallway, calling Jeff's name, but his room was empty. The lights were off. Then I heard the clattering, back from the rat trap room. Oh no, I got Jeff. I muttered. I hobbled down the hall, still limping from earlier. The door to the trap room was ajar.
My toe fell victim to your trap as well.
I began, pushing the door open. But the words stuck in my throat. A man, not Jeff. One foot caught in a trap, the other bleeding. Face pale and twisted in pain. His clothes were grimy, too fitted to be coincidence. He looked like someone who hadn't seen daylight in a while. Behind him, the wall panel was wide open. He saw me. I saw the knife. He pulled it from his pocket like it was nothing. Like this moment was always coming. I screamed. Ah! He yanked the trap off his foot and lunged. I bolted down the hall and down the stairs. Behind me was another scream, the snap of a trap. He cursed so loud it echoed through the walls. Damn it! In the kitchen, I turned to see him sprawled at the foot of the stairs. Another trap had clamped onto his hand. The knife had fallen. He wasn't moving. I stood there, panting, eyes bouncing between the back door and the bleeding man. Then I stepped forward. Slowly, I picked up the knife. His breathing was shallow. I thought maybe he was out cold. I walked past him and climbed the stairs again, straight to the trap room. The panel in the wall was still open. From where I stood, I could see my bedroom and the faint glow of my phone on the bed. I hesitated, then stepped forward, dodging traps. The crawl space was bigger than I expected, roomy enough to walk if you hunched a little. I looked to the left, then right. Corridors behind the drywall. A whole hidden world. Then something came behind me. Pain. The back of my head lit up with fire. I fell forward into the crawl space, knife falling from my hand. The man. He dropped the trap he'd hit me with and tried to shove me deeper inside.
You shouldn't have come up here.
He grunted. But I wasn't done. I kicked out hard, my heel landing in his bleeding toe. He shrieked. I grabbed the nearest trap and slammed it into his leg. He stumbled. I shoved with everything I had and he fell backwards into the crawl space. I slammed the panel shut and dragged a cabinet in front of it. I collapsed outside the room, breath ragged, sweat cold. Cops came in 10 minutes. Turns out Jeff, in his curiosity, had posted about Zoom barking at the walls and rat traps catching shadows. A neighbor had read it. His wife had gone missing 2 weeks ago. The man in the walls, Gregory something, had a record. Stalking, breaking and entering, a restraining order from a woman who died last year. He'd been living between the walls for weeks. Why didn't he just rob us? I asked the officer, still shaking.
Some people don't want your stuff, ma'am. They want your life.
They found a blanket, food wrappers, photos, pictures of me, of Jeff, of Zoom. Pictures taken from inside the house. Jeff stared at the wall, pale as chalk. I thought I heard whispers. I thought it was rats. I whispered. You were right. Just not the kind you expected. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I stayed up watching Zoom, who slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. They said he would have killed me, that people like him don't stop until someone stops them. They were calling me brave, a hero. But when I close my eyes, I see the knife. I feel the crack on my skull, the chill of those hidden walls. I remembered the way he moved, the way he smiled just before he lunged. Sometimes, when it's very quiet, I think I still hear something behind the walls. A scrape, a breath. But it's probably just the traps. I left most of them in place, just in case.
It was a normal day. I was working my boring 9-to-5 desk job at a tech company that smelled like burnt coffee and ambition. Then I found the note. It was wedged beneath my keyboard, folded like a high school confession. Plain white, no frills. Just 4 words in tidy, careful cursive. You are incredibly beautiful. No name, no hint, just that. I laughed, but not because it was romantic, but because it was so random. Like someone watched one too many rom-coms and thought this would be charming. I held it up between 2 fingers like it was radioactive. Okay, secret admirer, I muttered. Bit outdated, but cute effort. Later that evening, my coworker Mason gave me a ride home. We often carpooled when our shifts aligned. He was the kind of guy you'd describe as inoffensive. Quiet, punctual, average in the most unremarkable way. I'd never thought twice about him. As soon as I buckled in, I brought up the note. You won't believe what I found today, I said, smirking. Someone left me a love letter. I feel like I'm in high school again. He didn't laugh. Seriously? I nudged his arm. I mean, come on. It's kind of funny. His hands tightened on the wheel. Did you tell HR? What? For calling me beautiful? I scoffed. I'm married, not endangered. He didn't respond. The rest of the drive was quiet. I chalked it up to a bad day. The next week, HR pulled me aside, asked if Mason had ever made me uncomfortable, said they were conducting an internal inquiry. I didn't get much detail, just a vague suggestion that past complaints were under review. I remembered the silence in his car, the way his knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Something was off. Later, Lana from accounting messaged me. "Hey, did Mason ever drive you home?" I said, "Yes." She replied, "Call me." Lana told me everything. Mason had offered her rides too, friendly at first. Then he started showing up at her gym, her yoga studio. Once, he parked outside her house for hours. She only knew because her neighbor texted her a photo. "I thought I was paranoid," she said, "until HR found his search history." "What do you mean?" I asked, chilled. "Let's just say he knew a lot about where I went, what I wore, who I saw." It didn't end there. One Monday morning, our team had a presentation in the main conference room. Our manager, Darren, asked Mason to open his screen to demo a client dashboard. He plugged in his USB and tapped the wrong folder. I wish I hadn't seen it. We all do. It was a video. Deep fake quality. AI generated, but disturbingly real. Mason and Lana in a scene that looked like it belonged on a premium site behind a paywall. It was like 1,000 shades of gray. More than that. Violent even. And the worst part? The faces weren't blurred. It was them. Their expressions, all synthetically animated to perfection. The room went silent. I remember the sound of the air conditioner humming, the way time slowed. Mason frantically tried to hit escape. The laptop didn't respond. Darren yanked the HDMI cable out of the laptop. Security escorted Mason out within 5 minutes. He didn't even try to explain. The company went into PR lockdown. HR ran emergency seminars. We had to sign NDAs. They called it an isolated incident. A week after the incident, a second video surfaced. This time, it was me. The email was anonymous, but the message was clear. "You laughed. Now you'll see what's funny." I didn't click on it. I couldn't. But someone in legal did. They said it was the same AI style, just my face this time, just as twisted. The video hadn't leaked yet, but it was only a matter of time. I broke down in the HR office. "Why me?" I asked. "Why her? Why us?" They didn't have answers. They just promised to involve the authorities. A few days later, I found another note, this time in my mailbox at home. "You always thought I wasn't worthy." No envelope, no return address. I went to the police. They said Mason had been fired and was under investigation, but not charged. Not yet. They didn't have concrete evidence that he sent the email, or the note, or the video. "But he made the first one," I snapped. "Legally, that's still under review." Legally. That word stopped meaning anything after this. 3 weeks later, it was 2 a.m. My husband and I were asleep when the security lights outside flicked on. I checked the camera feed. A car parked across the street, engine idling. Too far to see the plates, but I knew. I moved out a week later. New job, new city. I didn't leave forwarding info, just vanished. Like Lana. Mason disappeared too. Last I heard, he left the state. Police couldn't press charges due to insufficient digital forensics proving that it was his USB that created the videos. AI tech moves faster than the law, apparently. But then, 3 months after I'd started over, I got one last letter. Different handwriting. Sloppier. Like it was rushed. "You should have thanked me for noticing you." I kept it in a locked drawer as a reminder. A reminder that some monsters don't hide under beds. They sit 2 cubicles away. They offer to drive you home. They hold open doors. They laugh at your jokes. This story was inspired from an incident shared by one of our Broccoli fam subscribers. In the real incident, the creepy coworker left her a note and only stalked her colleague. Whew. I still don't know how we didn't smell it sooner. You'd think a raw chicken rotting in a closet for weeks would raise alarm bells, but we'd gotten so used to the stench of old beer, gym socks, and unwashed dishes in our shared college apartment that the scent just blended in, until it didn't. It was the end of October, midterms just behind us, and Kyle and I were half dead from all-nighters and caffeine overdoses. I came home one afternoon, threw off my hoodie, and immediately gagged.
Jesus, did something die in here?
I muttered, covering my nose. Kyle popped his head out of his room.
Oh shit, I think it might be the chicken.
What chicken? He blinked like he was trying to remember a dream.
It's from like a month ago. I bought raw chicken and seltzer. I never found the chicken after I got home. I think I left the whole bag in the closet.
You left raw chicken in our coat closet? I was hungover. Sue me. We opened the closet and nearly passed out. The grocery bag had melted into the carpet. The chicken had liquefied, seeping into the fibers like some kind of cursed soup. I dry heaved in the sink while Kyle tried to scoop it into a trash bag. We cleaned it, bleached it, scrubbed it with every chemical we had, but something lingered. That night, I had a dream about my skin peeling off in strips. When I woke up, there was blood on my pillow from where my gums had bled during the night. 2 days later, Kyle showed me a patch on his forearm where the skin looked molted and thin. He joked about becoming a zombie. I laughed until I noticed a similar patch forming under my jawline. It got worse. Our teeth began to loosen. The skin on our hands peeled like sunburnt plastic. But here's the thing. Every time we left the apartment, we felt fine. No pain, no peeling. We'd sit in class or grab coffee and be completely normal. But the minute we stepped back into that place, it started again. What if it's not just the chicken? I asked Kyle one night, sitting on the kitchen counter with a cold beer pressed to my cheek. Like what? Mold? Asbestos? Something else. He looked at me, eyes bloodshot and sunken. It feels like the apartment's trying to kill us. We crashed at our friend Dave's place for a few nights. Within 24 hours, our symptoms eased. Skin started healing, no more bleeding gums, but we'd already crossed some threshold. Our bodies were damaged. We could feel it in our bones. The way joints creaked. The way light made our eyes burn. We had someone come and do a deep clean of the apartment. Industrial grade stuff. When we returned, the place smelled sterile and fake, like a hospital. We stood in the doorway for a full minute before stepping in. Nothing happened. Not right away. But around midnight, I woke up to find something pulsing in the closet. No joke, a faint glow under the door, like a heartbeat. I woke Kyle up. Tell me you see that. I see it. We didn't open it. We packed our bags and left again. That's when we decided to go back to the store where Kyle bought the chicken. It was this small, dusty place on the edge of campus. I'd only been in once. Mostly sold expired snacks and weird off-brand soda. We didn't expect it to still be open, but it was. Fully lit, clean. New paint job. The guy behind the counter looked up and smiled. He was short, maybe 60, with gray hair slicked back and a Yankees cap that didn't fit quite right.
Well,
He said, grinning.
look who it is.
You remember us? Kyle asked.
Sure do. You were the kid who looked like my dumbass son. That's why I gave you the chicken. Figured you'd appreciate the lesson.
What lesson? You gave me expired meat? The man chuckled.
It wasn't expired, just seasoned.
I stepped forward. You knew what that meat would do? He shrugged.
I knew it would change you. Didn't think you'd be dumb enough to keep it in a damn closet. We're calling the cops, I said. You poisoned us.
His laughter echoed through the empty store.
Call whoever you want. No one's gonna find anything. It's not a crime to sell a chicken.
We stood there, stunned. My palms were sweating. I realized they were bleeding again. The scabs had cracked open.
Why would you do that?
Kyle asked, voice trembling. The man leaned over the counter.
You two are the first ones to come back. You think that means something?
We backed out of the store and drove in silence. For the next few weeks, we bounced from place to place, trying to stay away from the apartment. But things got bad. Kyle was worse. He started talking in his sleep. Not in English. Not even in any language I recognized. Just weird sounds. Like something was trying to speak through him. One night, I found him standing in front of the closet again. The pulsing light was back. "Kyle," I said gently, "let's go." He didn't move. "It's calling me," he whispered. "It's not real." He turned to me. His eyes didn't blink. "It's more real than you." I grabbed my bag and left. He stayed. I haven't seen him since. This story is loosely inspired from a real-world event shared by one of our subscribers. In the real world, the following is what happened. Back in college, my roommate once did something unbelievably careless. He picked up some groceries, sparkling water and raw chicken, and for reasons I'll never understand, shoved the entire bag into the closet we both used. And then he completely forgot about it. Weeks went by. A weird, stomach-turning stench began creeping into our room. We searched everywhere, trash, laundry, even under the bed, until one day we opened the closet and found the source. The chicken had decomposed in the bag. The memory of that rancid odor still clings to me, years later.
Martha walked as fast as she could. She fought through the pain. If she actually allowed her brain to register the pain running through her, she'd probably fall to the ground. But over the past few weeks, she got much better at ignoring the pain and pushing forward. Sometimes she even enjoyed the pain a little bit. It's amazing what tricks your brain can do when you have a goal. Thankfully, the street was empty that night. Otherwise, she would have to explain to strangers what was in the cooler. She tried her best to hold it steady, but it was still overflowing a little. If anyone approached her, they'd be able to see the trails of blood streaking down the sides. She made it all the way to her boss's apartment building. She walked 3 long blocks from that shady clinic without passing by a single person. She loved nights like these. Nights when she was able to avoid all the nosy neighbors or curious pedestrians who couldn't mind their own damn business. But just as she was opening the door, a woman called out to her from the distance.
Excuse me, ma'am. Are you okay?
Martha turned around to see a stranger walking toward her. She didn't recognize the woman, but she knew the type. A supposed Good Samaritan. A busybody who couldn't possibly understand how much Martha needed to finish delivering the dinner. I'm fine, don't worry about me. The woman could see the bandages on Martha's hands and legs, and the blood dripping out of her cooler. She knew that something was very wrong. Martha needed to figure out an excuse, fast. She would not allow anyone to interrupt her before she could deliver her boss's dinner.
I think I should call an ambulance. Please don't, ma'am. I just got back from the hospital. I'm recovering now, which is why I look so weak.
She kept looking at the cooler, obviously wondering what was inside.
Please, ma'am. I've had a long day and I'm starving. Just leave me alone so I can go home and make my dinner.
Martha waited for the longest time for this woman to react. She knew that if the woman didn't back off, she'd be forced to call her boss and have him take care of her. But she didn't want to do that. She knew how much he hated to deal with those kinds of issues. Finally, the woman dropped it.
Okay, well, take care, dear.
Once Martha was alone, she let out a sigh of relief. She'd made it back to the apartment without any trouble. The hard part was about to come, though. She had to climb the stairs. Martha had made this trip many times before, but it got harder every time. By the time she reached the 2nd floor, she could barely breathe. The cooler was heavy, but she made it. She stopped in front of her boss's door and took a second to catch her breath before she knocked. When he finally opened the door, Martha felt the familiar sense of excitement at seeing her boss again. All this pain, all this hard work, was worth it to know that she was helping her big, handsome man.
Hey, sweetie. Sorry it took me so long.
I'm starving. Where's my dinner?
Her boss grabbed the food from Martha's hand without even a thank you. He used to thank her. He used to be very appreciative. But the more he took, the worse he treated her. The man waddled to his table and opened the cooler to see what she'd brought.
What is this?
Martha didn't answer. She knew her boss always wanted to be surprised by his dinner. She helped him back into his chair while she went into the kitchen to fix up his stew. She poured all her new ingredients into the crock pot. She added his favorite spices and veggies, even though she knew that all he cared about was the meat.
Hurry up!
When it was finally done, Martha poured his stew into a bowl and brought it to him. She felt so excited for him to taste it. She obviously wouldn't eat any of the stew herself, but she couldn't deny that it smelled delicious. As he gobbled it down, letting the broth ooze messily down his face, she took off her jacket. All this cooking had gotten her very warm. Her boss took a break from eating to ask her again.
What is it today? It's so much better than those tasteless ladyfingers.
It's a fancy menu today, sir. I got you some ribs. In the real-world incident, Emily James from Kansas City spent $17,000 to have 6 ribs removed from her waist. The goal was to achieve a slimmer look, and she is now planning to pay someone to use the ribs, which she was allowed to take home with her, and craft them into a crown as a way to commemorate the procedure. The procedure is an elective cosmetic surgery, and she received mixed reactions on social media where she shared her story. Steadfast in the face of criticism, Emily says the surgery was her choice, done using her money, and should be seen as nothing different from other cosmetic procedures that people get done.
I never expected dorm life to feel like a slow burn horror show. When I moved into Westbridge Hall, 10th floor, room 1007, it was late August. Muggy and heavy, a kind of heat that clings to your skin like a warning. My roommate, Danielle, was already there when I arrived, arranging her side of the room with military precision. Posters lined perfectly, desk supplies in neat rows, bed tucked in tight. "Hey, I'm Maddie," I said, smiling, dragging my duffel in. Danielle turned, wide-eyed, like she hadn't expected me. "Hi, Danielle." We tried small talk, but she was distracted. By the second day, I noticed her routines. Every night before bed, Danielle would lock the door, turn the handle right, pull 3 times, left, pull 3 times, right again, pull 3 more times. It was hypnotic. "Do you have like a code or something?" I joked. "My mom says it's the only way to make sure the door is secure." I laughed, but she didn't. Her mother. That woman ruled our room, even though she wasn't physically present. When we tried arranging our beds into an L shape to maximize space, Danielle came back from a weekend at home saying, "My mom says no. Someone could fall out the window." I stared at the window. Bolted, locked, 2 feet above bed level. "You think someone's gonna roll over, launch themselves up and out like a gymnast?" Danielle didn't even smile. "It's just safer this way." I let it go. One night, I had just taken out the trash and chucked some receipts into the bin by the sink. Danielle went to brush her teeth, knocked her toothbrush into the bin, and froze. "Do you think it's still okay to use?" "I mean, it touched paper trash for like half a second. Just rinse it." But she didn't. She called her mom. 10 minutes later, she was on speaker with her dad, describing the trash, how long the toothbrush was inside, whether the bristles had touched the side. I slipped on headphones. That night, I dreamt I was brushing my teeth. Not just a dream. It felt vivid. I could taste the mint, the scrape of bristles on my gums. I woke up sweaty. The next night, same dream. Brushing over and over until my gums ached. By the 3rd night, I was unnerved. I watched Danielle carefully lock the door in her ritual. "Good night, Maddie," she whispered. "Night." I closed my eyes. In the dream, I was brushing again. Faster, harder. My gums bleeding, blood swirling in the sink. I jolted awake, panting. On the 4th morning, groggy and uneasy, I rubbed my eyes and saw Danielle standing at the sink. But something was wrong. She was brushing her teeth with my toothbrush. "What the hell?" I shouted, lunging out of bed. She jumped, toothbrush halfway out of her mouth. "Mom said it's fine."
She said if I dropped mine, I could use yours for a few days. I doubled over and gagged. My toothbrush had been in her mouth. I ran to the sink, spitting, rinsing, scrubbing my tongue with soap like an idiot. Danielle watched, calm. You're overreacting. I knew then I had to get out. But revenge first. I waited till she was in class, and then gathered my dirtiest underwear and slid them under her pillow. I imagined her pale face when she found them. But as I lifted her pillow, I saw something that made me stop. Tucked beneath, a small notebook, filled with my name, page after page, in neat looping handwriting. Maddie talks too loud. Maddie leaves crumbs on the floor. Maddie wore the green shirt again. Maddie is ungrateful. Maddie rolls her eyes at me. A chill crawled down my spine. I put the pillow back. I shoved my underwear back into my hamper. I sat on the bed, heart hammering. Was she documenting me? That night, as she did her ritual, I pretended to scroll on my phone. Hey Danielle, why do you always write in that notebook under your pillow? She froze. What? You know, the one with my name? Her face turned pale. You went through my stuff? No, I saw it, Daniel. What's in there? She bit her lip. Mom says I should track when people make me uncomfortable. I laughed, sharp and nervous. So, you have a file on me? You gonna report me to the dean? Maybe. Her eyes gleamed. Maybe I already did. I felt sick. That night, the dreams came back. Only now, I was brushing her teeth. I could feel her teeth, her gums, her breath. I woke up disgusted. The next morning, I went to the housing office. I need a room change. The admin, a bored-looking guy with a headset, raised a brow. Problems with your roommate? Yeah, she's unsettling. He smirked. You wouldn't be the first. What? He leaned forward. Word of advice, watch your toothbrush. It might have visited places you could never even think of. I switched rooms that week. This story is inspired from one of the real-world events shared by our subscribers. In the real-life story, when the roomie dropped her toothbrush in the trash, she did go on a long call with her parents. After 2 hours of intense discussion, it was decided that she would be getting a new toothbrush. We'd just wrapped up a haircut. Jules, my regular, had been going on about some dating horror story involving a woman with a ferret and an ex-boyfriend who lived in her basement. I couldn't stop laughing. Neither could he. Man, I swear, Jules chuckled, brushing hair off his neck. If you ever see me swiping again, slap the phone out of my hand. I held up the cape. Deal. But you'll owe me a tip if I break your screen. We both laughed. Then we heard it. The front door creaked open, a second too slow, and in stepped Trouble, dressed in a leather jacket 3 winters too old, and boots that looked like they'd been digging graves. He was slurring before he even got to the waiting chair. The fuck are you laughing at? Jules, still standing, glanced at me, then back to him. Nobody's laughing at you, man. We're just chilling. Relax. But relax was the wrong word. Something about that word snapped him. You think I'm a joke? He growled, swaying a little. The stink of whiskey and sour breath hit the air like a second presence. I didn't say a word. My colleague Danny, cutting a kid's fade in the next chair, locked eyes with me in the mirror. She was already edging toward her phone, slow and silent. The drunk stepped forward. I said, he jabbed a finger. What's so funny, huh? Jules raised both hands, palms out. Dude, we ain't got beef. You walked in during a funny story, that's it. You calling me stupid? The kid in Danny's chair squirmed. The drunk's voice was rising. I stepped back, instinct kicking in, but there was nowhere to go. I was pinned between the counter and the shampoo sink. Then it happened. The drunk lunged. Jules blocked the first swing. A clipper cord tangled around their legs. They slammed into my chair, knocking it over. The sound of metal and plastic crashing filled the room. Yo! Danny barked. Another customer jumped in. Mike,
a quiet guy who came in every 2 weeks like clockwork. Somehow, they separated the two. I stayed frozen, heart hammering in my throat, hands shaking near the scissors I'd just sanitized. The drunk backed toward the door, still shouting, "I'll come back!" He screamed, eyes darting around like a rabid dog cornered. "You don't know me! I run this whole street!" Then, like it was nothing, he reached into his coat and pulled out a taser. That sound, like a bug zapper crossed with a rattlesnake, changed the room. Nobody moved. He didn't aim it, not yet, just waved it like a warning, like he wanted us to flinch. "I said I'm not a fucking joke!" Mike stepped forward. "Put that shit down, man. You're on camera." "You think I give a damn about cameras?" But Danny, she had already killed the power earlier. No footage, no evidence. And I suddenly realized, neither did he. I crouched low, crept behind the washing station, slipped out the back exit, and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. By the time I circled around front, he was gone. Police came, took statements, asked questions I couldn't fully answer. What was his name? Had we seen him before? No, never. Days went by, then weeks. I couldn't shake it. Every time a customer laughed out loud, I flinched. Every time the door creaked, I tightened my grip on the scissors. I started checking the mirror more than necessary, scanning for leather jackets and broken boots. Jules didn't come back for 2 months. Danny started bringing pepper spray in her apron pocket. Then we heard it. The drunk had shown up at a liquor store near 8th Street, pissed himself, and tried to choke the clerk over a denied bottle of Fireball. Cops found a knife in his sock and a taser in his jacket. Tagged. Community service. Parole violation. No jail time. This story was shared by one of our Broccoli fam subscribers, Kevin. In all his years as a working professional, this was the most messed up incident he experienced.